regarding expenses and how to kind of protect your business during the shifting market. I'm gonna let them introduce themselves, so please start us off here.
Okay, my name is Ryan Edmondson, and you want me to tell?
Yeah, just first tell us when you became a realtor, how long you've been a realtor, and what other businesses you own.
Okay, so I have had a real estate license since 2008, and I also own rental properties and Airbnbs and long-term rentals. We have a small team with my wife and then Maddie Grigger, who probably a lot of you know. And then we have Katrine, who is a superstar cyberbacker based in the Philippines.
You have Edie too, right?
Edie helps us with our rentals.
With your rentals.
She's not involved with
The sales part. Okay, awesome. All right. And we have Kris Keller.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kris Keller. I got my real estate license in 2016, so I'm kind of new compared to Ryan. And I have a tax and consulting practice in addition to my real estate sales practice. Recently became an associate broker and started a team about a year ago. We have a team of 4, including me, all realtors. And I also am a notary.
Awesome. Okay, tell me, or like those are your business. Okay, so you told us the number of team members. Okay, so what is the red, yellow, and green exercise? I know what we talked about in advance, but how did you each define it for yourselves?
So the way I interpreted it was all of the business expenses that are kind of like you really have to do these to continue as a business, those are green. Anything that is something that's like kind of nice to have, but you don't need it is yellow. And then anything that you shouldn't be spending money on is red.
Same. Okay. So did either of you use any kind of a service to go through this, or was it like a very personal, like step by step by step?
For me, what I did is I keep all business expenses in QuickBooks. I printed out that report for June, and then all of our personal expenses I keep in Quicken. I printed that out for June, and then I went through with 3 different colors, and
So you actually red, yellow, green, personal as well as business. Okay, well, you get an gold star today for sure. Okay, Kris, did you do it personally, or did you? I know you're an accountant. So
I did it. I had to do it on both sides because here's what I find out the most, that I am real lean in my business and I'm real loosey-goosey in my personal life. And it's because I have a 30-year history of being real loosey-goosey in my personal life. And I have a 6-year history of running a real lean startup, right? So my problem areas are more on the personal side of things.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so was there, aside from just like what you said in terms of red lighting, was there any other specific criteria that you used to red light something? Was it return on investment? Was it just like, that's a little this or whatever? Were you just cutthroat? How did you find that you were more cutthroat about those things, Kris?
I was really cutthroat on the personal side because I know I have some retail therapy habits that I've been trying to reel in for a couple of years.
Okay.
And so those are long-standing habits and they take a little bit more effort to change. And so I'm kind of cutthroat on that. On the business side, I look more at ROI.
Okay, perfect. How about you, Ryan?
so on the personal side, anything I spent is green, anything Heather spent is yellow.
Okay, Heather, that's like at this 8-minute mark. You need to find that and cut them down.
For the business side, it's kind of like I always try to think on return on investment, but to me, I think in this business, it's hard to sometimes pinpoint exactly what is reaching. You know, we do a magazine, we do a quarterly magazine, and I think that largely contributes to our retention
Yes.
But it's also the fact that, we talk to them every once in a while, but like which of those is, everybody
The
comments on the
tracking.
magazine. so-
Right?
Yeah, it's hard
The
to
tra-
measure.
Okay. A quick question that came up in my head. Was there something that you found that you were like, okay, I'll cut it temporarily? Was there something that you felt like I'm red lighting temporarily until, or if something changes in the market, Ryan?
So the thing that I think was most helpful about this exercise is it actually gives me a little bit of peace in that, like, my biggest concern is I have inherited this from my dad. I'm always afraid that if I stop making money, I'm gonna, like, my kids are gonna starve and blah, blah, blah. So what was helpful for me for this is I've figured out that by cutting the yellows, I could instantly cut my monthly expenses by almost $10,000.
Wow. So the
That's personal,
yellows,
and
so the yellows were the deeper well you found for the cutting.
yeah, it's just stuff that if I had to tomorrow, I could cut every single one of them,
Okay.
and it gives me a lot more longevity.
Okay. And were they kind of instantaneous? Like if you cut them now, you'd be good for in the next 30 days?
Yeah, like, I mean, like one of those is daycare, for example.
Oh.
It's $2,800 a month.
Yeah.
That if we had to, we could cut that, and then we would
Deal.
probably die quickly anyway.
Okay, Kris, again, was there, I forget my original question, but it was about, what's there, the specific things in the red cutting?
Yeah, in my yellow area, things that I would reduce in a shifting market would be print marketing as opposed to like social media marketing, and also just walk up, what I call walk up marketing. When I look at my source data, 33% of my business comes from me just generating a conversation with you. And that's free. So if I put more of my effort there and less of my effort in the spend, I actually get a better result, right? I think print marketing is really important for branding, and I like to do it quarterly. But in a leaner market, I dial it back to twice a year. We're a smaller team and we're a newer team. We're not running with a $10,000 a month budget to begin with. I'm just throwing a number, So we can't cut that much,
Gotcha,
right?
gotcha.
But I think when you're a single agent, which is where I was before I started this team, last year I worked nonstop. And a lot of us did because it was a crazy year. But when I looked at the numbers, I did more business than I had ever done, and I made more than I had ever made. But it's not really sustainable as a single agent, and so that's what sort of got me into the team world. But as a single agent, my biggest spend issues were still on the personal side, because I was still running a really lean ship.
So something that just came up as I'm hearing both of you guys explain that. Real quick, was there something that you found in your expenses that you thought to yourself, I could do that cheaper, or I can do that for free? Was there something you thought, I still want to keep that going, but I can think about this in a different way? Was there anything that came up in that regard? I know this is on the spot.
I'm like reorganizing my entire life at the moment.
Okay.
Because I went through a divorce and sold a house, and I'm in a new relationship, and so I used to have 3 bunkers. I used to have a bunker in the North Hills, a bunker in the East Hills, and a bunker in my car. And that's pretty expensive, but I used to run 5 counties by myself. Now I have 4 people, and I don't run 5 counties anymore. Now out of our 4 people, I'm north, somebody's center, somebody's south, and somebody's east.
Okay.
And so we disseminate that workout, and so I've reduced the bunkers.
Gotcha.
And I'm reducing the driving.
Okay. Yeah. Ryan, was there anything that you felt like, okay, I can cut this, or I can do this differently?
Yeah, there's plenty of stuff. I will say though that I did this, not the exact same exercise, but I've done this exercise twice within the past year.
Okay.
So there wasn't as much, I was thinking there would be a lot of fat there that had been there before, and some other stuff would get it. There wasn't a ton of it, but like things like, could we get away without our admin?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we could.
Mhm.
I don't want to.
Yeah, that's, yeah,
So there's stuff like, it's kind of like, and that's one of the yellows in the
that's one of your big
expenses.
yellows.
So it's like, it's all things that I think make sense to keep them right now, but if we had to, we could do them different.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like too, when you like, when you're in a mini recession, and you see these corporations reduce their support staff. Right?
Yeah.
It's one of those.
Yeah, okay. So, let's see, was there an area of your expenses that needed the most attention? And the examples I gave y'all in advance was like advertising or dues and subscriptions or something like that. Did you notice that there was, I find stuff creeps up because I'm an impulse clicker and I'm like, oh, that subscription, oh yeah, sign me up. And the next thing you know, I've got like 5 webinars that I'm supposed to see every
Mhm.
month that I don't watch. So was there something?
Guilty of that on the tech side.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
No, for sure, dues and subscriptions, it's one thing I did when I did this like a year ago. I don't know if any of you ever know, it's the best thing ever. Do you use Evernote? Is that what you're calling it?
Evernote, oh.
Okay, it's just a
I used to do.
note organizer that you can keep on your phone, your computer, everywhere. And I made a note for when I'm going through my finances, like where to see Apple subscriptions.
Yes.
Because that's the problem is you say, oh man, I know that's like that $100 is an annual subscription for something. How do I even find it?
Yeah, so you wrote
So I wrote
instructions to yourself.
instructions, So
I've done that too. Like, where to go, what app, like where to go,
Yeah.
click to unsubscribe. Yeah,
so that was helpful.
that's good.
But yeah, those and then like channels on Netflix. I swear our kids subscribe to them.
Or it's the 7 days free and then you forget to
Yeah.
unsubscribe, right? I
So
can
the-
see that about you.
The accountant in me uses one credit card for all these things. And then when I go through regular green, you know what I do? Call the credit card company and I say, I lost my card. Can you replace it and give me a new number? And it cuts
like
everybody off. Everybody gets cut off. It is
That's
brutal, but I don't have to remember anything and I don't have to make any phone calls.
And
Everybody
they
gets
call
cut
you.
off.
They start
And then
calling
they
you.
call me. And then when they call me, and then when they call me, I say,
I really don't want to cancel.
I called you a month ago and I canceled that. I should have been charged for that.
Oh my
And I
gosh,
get refunds.
you are.
But I'm a jerk like
killing me.
that.
Karma.
You know, and that could be karma. Now, I never buy a dress, wear it and take it back. That to me is bad.
Oh my
karma.
gosh.
Right?
So-
Girls do that.
Ryan, do you like that opened a good question too, like as far as your finances, do you have everything funneling through like a business account or do you mind sharing? I know this is off the chart here. Do you mind sharing like how you set up your banking? Like, is it business this,
Oh,
business, that? It's all different.
That was definitely the most important step I've ever made in finances is, have a credit card and a checking account for real estate sales, several of each for rental properties and for personal.
Okay, how about you?
And I am not a lawyer, but the tax preparer in me has set up a lot of S corps and a lot of LLCs and done a lot of tax reporting compliance work over a 20-year career. So when I could afford it, which was not at the beginning, I set up an S corp. And then I set up a payroll. And I pay myself through that S corp. And I don't pay myself a lot because I have to have money for myself. And that causes me stress on a regular cash flow cycle. Right? So you start out really slow, like $500 a month. You have to have a payroll in order to have an S corp. And you have to be an employee of your own company in order to legitimize that with the IRS. But every time I pay myself, there's a little expense to run a payroll, but I also pay my taxes. I also pay into UC. So I have unemployment, right? Because I'm an employee of a company, I'm a wage earner. So I like that scenario.
Yeah.
Now, because of that, I have a little withholding, and when my numbers go up, I can increase my own salary. I can even change my salary every month if I needed to. The IRS might question that, but they would understand that my cash flow is erratic because I'm in the wage.
And commission-based.
And commission-based,
Yeah.
right? So I like to work that. Once I set the S corp up, I put the car in the S corp so that the car is owned by the S corp. So that's a 100% asset. Now, most people, if you're a single person, you don't need 2 cars. But if you're in a partnership or you have an adult child that can drive, buy a second car. Because when the IRS sees that you have 2 cars, the Cadillac is 100% deductible. Because I have another car that I can use for personal use. And they don't question them at all. So I've eliminated my audit risk for mileage because I have 2 cars. Now, if I was just one person, I wouldn't need 2 cars. That would be ridiculous, right? But now that I have the need for the second car, I try to take that tax advantage. I'm always looking for places where I can get a tax advantage, right? As an S Corp and an owner, I don't currently have health insurance. But once I do again,
Yeah.
which is a yellow area that I cut, health insurance. And sometimes it takes hard cuts, but I don't have kids to put on coverage. It's just me. On the flip side, though, I don't miss my annual physical. I get my blood drawn every year and I maintain my heart meds. So it's not like I'm not taking care of myself. I'm just trying to reduce the expenses that otherwise get flushed on the toilet if I don't use them.
Well, that's a whole extra other webinar on just taxes.
Yeah.
That's huge. Okay,
Is-
so,
is your question?
I
yes,
just have a quick question. I'm sorry. Cause I do what you do there, the escort. Yeah, I pay myself a salary for my oil. And, so I can put my car, I'm driving right now, under my LLC.
Sell it to your LLC.
Okay.
Sell it to your LLC. Now, the state won't let you do it for $1 anymore. They're onto that scam. So sell it to the LLC for blue book value and pay the transfer tax. The
Okay.
transfer tax is tax deductible,
Yes.
right? And now the LLC owns your vehicle.
Oh, wow. I just paid it
Okay.
off.
Yeah.
Thank you.
there you go. All right. Okay, so, so we talked about where was there an area of most expenses. We talked more, you said more personal, and you said like dues and subscriptions and things like that. You mentioned something about that I think is really interesting, and that is just kind of the emotional connection to money. You mentioned your dad and how that's a huge factor for so many of us, is how are we raised about money? Like what kind of conversations were happening in our households around money, or the lack thereof, right? So what other things were coming up for you? Like I find I get like a little stressed when I have to cut, or something that I really want, and making those hard decisions. Did you find that there was like some, you know, or, you
I
know?
mean, I get stressed when I see how much money you spend. That's, I mean, it's not about cutting. I just get stressed when I look at this and it's like 5 pages of transactions for 1 month. It's like, why? And then I think back to like 7 years ago when I was
Solo agent.
solo agent, solo everything.
Okay, single.
And like literally was able to live off of $2,000 a month. And now I'm like, where's it going? Yeah,
Yeah,
so that stresses me out, but it's also a motivator.
yeah, yeah. How about you, Kris? What kind of emotional connection did you have with the cutting and the?
So, the big elephant in the room is the word fear, right? When I was a tax accountant, I would lose sleep at night because my tax return was off $1, because I knew my boss wouldn't like that. And when I got up in the morning and I was in the shower, the light bulb would go off and I'd go, oh, I know. And it was always in rounding. Money causes a lot of stress, a lot of stress. And I'm always afraid I'm gonna be broke. And I'm always afraid I'm gonna be homeless. And that never really goes away. So I just have to manage it. I have to have mechanisms to manage that fear, right? Because it's always there. And a lot of it goes back to family. Like my dad used to say, trying to run a business without marketing is like trying to eat without food. You literally can't do that because nobody knows what you do. Nobody knows what you sell. Nobody knows what your value is. So some way you have to tell them, right? So that one always rides with me. And so I always want to spend more on marketing than I have, you know, because the fear tells me that if I don't do that, then I'm not going to have a pipeline filled with business. And eventually I will be determined to be homeless,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And then I like take a step back and I remember that money is meant to be spent. I love the idea of savings. It's wonderful. And I always feel better when I have money in the bank. In fact, when I have money in the bank, the fear goes away, right? But the whole purpose of money is for it to move around. So I like the idea of us all having this big pot of, 100, whatever it is in the bank. Love
Yeah.
that. And my suggestion is build a 6-month emergency fund before you quit your day job. Build a 6-month emergency fund before you quit your day job. Right? Did I do it? No, I did not. But that is
Do
the
as I
advice
say,
that
not
I
as
would
I
give
do,
anybody.
right?
So
I got kicked out of my day job.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate there.
Yeah.
Because as I said, fear is like, debilitating, but it's also a motivator. And if you have to succeed, you're going to.
That's right.
you
This
know,
is so
it's
true.
like-
Well, and
Ryan,
if you
say
have
this.
to market, social media for the most part is free.
Command,
Well, command, but your social, your networking, whatever, all of those things, the people that the things that paralyze us with calling our sphere or calling past client, whatever it is, those things that hold us back, those are free. And when the rubber meets the road, as my dad would say, you're gonna get it done if the bills have to be paid.
I want to share this thing with you because what Ryan just said is spot on. And about a year ago, a broker of mine, his son wanted to buy a condo. So he called me on the phone and he said, my son wants to buy a condo. I think he's crazy, but will you help him find a condo? I said, sure. So I had never sold a condo before. So I'm downtown going through all these buildings. I don't know. Selling a condo. I don't know anything about selling condos. Okay. But my broker and I are real good friends and he trusts me. And he knew I had never sold a condo before. Like I told him, So anyway, this kid's 24 years old. And he's buying a $500,000 condo. And I thought to myself, and it was faith, though.
Yeah.
That's what was missing, right? Was the faith. Because I'm telling you, this kid's got so much faith in himself. And I said to him, Eric, I shouldn't call him kid, he's a man.
Yeah.
And I'm like his grandmother, but I said to him, Eric, how do you do this at 24 years old? Aren't you scared? And he didn't even hesitate. He looked at me and he said, I like the financial pressure. I find that it keeps me on my game.
Yeah.
And it's spot on.
Yeah.
Does he still own it?
He still owns it, honey. Eric is the reason. Eric is the reason that I bought that caddy. Because I could have bought any car.
Yeah.
Right now, when I went out to buy that car, there were only 2 on the lot. But I needed a car.
Yeah.
Tranny guy.
There's always a way to rationalize every purchase.
There was only 2 cars. I swear to you, there was a lot of cars. But my car mom gave me literally. I went in there looking for this car. It was one of the 2 cars on the lot. That was the car that I wanted.
Yeah.
And he was right. He's right. And Ryan's right. And so anybody who is a little paralyzed by fear or hides under the covers in the morning when they're thinking about paying their mortgage payment or their rent, or they're thinking about how they're only going to have $500 left after they pay all their bills, you got to just power through that.
See, I think you take that a step further too. And when you're feeling that fear, you have to be willing to be self-aware enough to take the time to find out where that's coming from. Is it the fear that belongs to our parents? What's the foundation of the originator of that? And how can we dig into, okay, yeah, this feels uncomfortable, whether it's I'm spending, because there's plenty of people that have fear around the spending part. And then there's people that have fear around the cutting back because we have the wants and we feel like it's going to meet all those needs. So I think that there's a huge psychological factor in how we function around money. So, huge. So we're powering through this, which I think is great. But okay, so was there any one thing that surprised you? And you said that you've done this exercise recently. Well, first let me ask this. What brought up the need for that previous time that you cut? Was there something that came up that made you feel like I need to cut right now? Or you just felt like, okay, time to look at things?
It was really, I got a max coach and they wanted to know where my money was going. So that's it.
Were you good about looking at your finances regularly before that? Or I think that that's like a plague in our business. And I think that's why a lot of agents take off and go and do other things sometimes around April and May, or whatever, they make weird decisions is when the tax bill comes. So I do think that that's a point to be made. So prior to the MAPS coach,
I've been okay. I
Yeah.
mean, I will say that I'm generally, I mean, it probably doesn't sound like that since I just said there's $10,000 I can cut. But I'm generally a pretty conservative,
Yeah.
spender. So I don't like, it's more things that I like, I would say things that I was letting slip by
gotcha.
than anything, not really making bad spending decisions so much.
Mhm. I will share like real quick, like my husband and I had like a year and a half ago, we decided to come up with a 10-year retirement plan. And I thought it was really hilarious. He said he wanted to sit down and go through the bank statements, which he's never done in 24 years. And I kind of chuckled because I know where the money goes. And he sat down with like 3 months and he's like highlighting everything. And he works for Whole Foods. And 10 swipes a day was like a copy. After like half of a month or maybe even a full month of highlighting himself, he was like, I'm done. Like he just,
It's like, I know where the money goes, I spend it all.
yeah, he was like, "Ooh," you know, like it was illuminating for him. It was very eye-opening and it's changed like that on a dime because he literally had no clue how much he was swiping per day on little things, you know, but a $5 coffee 3-5 times a day is really catching up. Okay, go ahead.
I was
What
gonna
was
say,
the
if
one
I
thing
had a nickel for every time I said, oh, that dress is gonna cost $15.
I know, it's on sale.
It's on
Yeah.
sale.
Okay, so what was the big surprises? You talked a little bit about the things. So I don't know, maybe if that's a surprise kit, or we'll save that for last. Or what were the things that you just were not, that were maybe in the red category, but you're not getting rid of? Like, first, tell me what surprised you the most.
The last time I did this exercise was when COVID,
Okay, smart.
and I was 7 months into being full-time. And all of a sudden I couldn't work. And so that was the first time I realized that I could just call the credit card company, cut the card. Because I do it fast. On Thursday, we were able to work, and on Wednesday, we were able to work, and on Thursday, we weren't.
That's right.
But my thing that surprised me the most really is food. I gift a lot. Like when the team meets, I feed them.
Mm.
When I one-on-one with somebody on the team, I feed them. When somebody needs a pick-me-up, I take them out for a drink. We have a conversation, right? And I spend a lot on entertainment.
Yeah.
And whether it's business entertainment, clients, whenever I'm showing houses, I pick up the bill. I buy the lunch, right?
Mhm.
Because I'm always like, it's deductible, it's deductible, it's deductible.
But it still adds up.
It adds up.
It's like, it's a big number.
The other thing is tech. I'm always like trying stuff,
Mm.
you
It's a cool
know?
little notebook.
Yeah, this, I lose $650 on this.
I know, she was trying to sell us on this.
Yeah, I was trying to sell these guys
We're all
the
trying
other
to cut
day,
expenses and she's telling us. about
right?
things.
Because you
Yeah.
need a digital notebook because paper and pen just isn't good enough.
Okay.
And I do find though that I like this a lot. And it has made me more efficient. So this tool I'm happy with, but I have bought tools in the last 12 months that have been a real waste. You know, like photography.
Mm.
How many of you guys have bought the thing on Facebook that rotates your camera around so you get your own visual tour if you go with the software? Yeah.
I leave that to the experts.
Yeah.
Thank you,
No, I
Jennifer.
don't do
You know, I blew 100 on that.
Yeah.
I blew 100 on
Did
that.
you? Did you?
I blew 100 on that.
Okay.
But it obviously doesn't do the same work that they want on this.
Yeah.
You know, just stuff like that.
Did either of you go through and find something that you thought, okay, maybe I could just get this a little bit cheaper? Did you start thinking that maybe a photographer or somebody else that you use, because those expenses add up?
I did it with my life thing. I'm like, I don't need 3 bunkers because I'm gonna rent an apartment that has a business center. Now I have a business center where I live. I don't need a gym membership because now I have a gym where I live.
Okay.
You know, I don't need to pay for extra storage because now I've reduced the stuff
Mhm.
so that I don't have to pay for extra storage. You know, like
Gotcha.
that kind of stuff.
How about you, Ryan? What was surprising? Like
I
what?
mean, the first round, I'm trying to think back to the first time I did it. I
Mhm.
had all kinds of Netflix channels and, you know, I was paying for Metro Fax. I haven't used fax in.
I found that too. Yeah. That was probably a 7-day free and then you didn't stop it and kept going.
Well, no, it was from back when we used to use fax.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's probably 10 years I've been
Mhm.
paying $8 a month,
Mhm.
you know, stuff like that. And then actually I found where I think we're paying for an extra annual Dropbox.
An extra Zoom account,
Yeah.
an extra Zoom account.
Yeah.
Yeah, we found that we
Like
were paying,
duplicates.
we found that we were paying for like 3 HBO channels.
Mhm. That's that dues and subscriptions.
Yeah, lots of dudes.
Double on that one. Okay. Is there anything that you guys wanted to share? I know that you wanted to share like something about something that could have been in the red, but you were just like, absolutely not. I'm not cutting this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I have 2 things I'll share with you. The first one that you gotta cut is interest. So if you shop within your means for all the things that you don't need, then you'll cut your interest expense big time.
You mean from credit? You mean like if you're
Credit
using credit
cards,
cards?
yeah.
Oh, those are-
And a lot of people don't know this. When you have like I have an Amex for my S Corp. So I use that card for all my business expenses. My interest on that Amex is tax deductible. Interest on business expenses is a tax deductible expense. Okay, so if you're gonna have interest, have it on the business side, not on the personal side, because you can't deduct your personal interest. So the interest that's paid on the card that's in the S Corp is tax deductible, right? Just like the investment property that you own in the LLC's taxes are tax deductible because it's in service as a business. So
Okay.
put everything you can into service as a business,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
And then the thing that you absolutely don't cut is that one thing that you do for yourself every month or every week or every quarter or every whatever that helps keep you sane. And for me, that's my massage. I get my facial. I get a facial massage every month. I never miss it. Even if I'm broke, I don't miss it. Like
Yeah.
I won't buy food, like extra food. Like literally, I will go have my massage before I'll go buy alcohol, right?
Yeah.
Because massage is way better for me than the alcohol.
Yeah.
Like, so
I
just
hear
like pick your
Yeah.
restoration services
Yeah.
and keep them.
So Ryan, was there something that you just felt like,
I mean, I guess if I had one bit of advice, if you're not using some type of accounting software, use it.
yes,
And learn how things should be categorized, learn what's tax deductible, what isn't, because taxes are huge.
expense?
Yeah.
Well, part of the expenses. So you mentioned Quicken, you mentioned QuickBooks,
QuickBooks all the way.
Okay.
And that, because it goes right in your TurboTax.
So I have an accountant, and I use Hurdler. It's for newer agents. It's very inexpensive, and you can track your expenses that way. It's also got a mileage tracker that helps you. And if you normally would take a standard deduction, if you track it and you can prove that you have more miles than what the standard deduction is, which I have found, if I'm tracking, it's more, I can bump it up.
Yeah.
So, so those are all of like our questions of just like, Ryan and Kris. Do you have any questions here or anybody in the chat?
Can
Oh,
I
go
give
ahead.
one more?
Please.
But, if you're not using an accountant, use one. Don't try to do it on your own, unless you're an accountant.
Yeah.
And what was the other thing I was going to say related to that?
I got one for you.
Definitely do what she was talking about. Talk to your accountant about forming an S corp. It's a huge tax savings.
I will say this, and I'm trying to remember who taught the class, and I actually think it was Tom Ferry. But it was about, thinking like a business, and I talked about that a lot in PC coaching, is have a business account, have another account that you automatically take your taxes and put it in that account, have another account that goes into some other like savings from that business if it's going to invest into something in the future. Like separate those out so that you, when the quarterly tax bill, is to pay on time. Like agents is really what I see. A lot of agents really.
2 things, on all business accounts, any bank fees are tax deductible. So don't stress about having more business accounts, just deduct the expenses and keep the expenses separate. And then secondly, the biggest opportunity that people miss with their accountant is to plan. Call that person before the transaction, not after. Because they can tell you how to structure it in such a way that you can maximize your tax benefit.
So there's something Kris taught me, right? One day she came and she says, oh, I got my first paycheck. And I'm looking at her like, in my brain, like, what does she mean? So what she taught me is to get in contact with Paychecks, right? And, you know, I separated, I have a new account, you know, just for that, right? And Paychecks pays me once a month.
Yeah.
They take out the taxes and everything, you know, and deposit the money right in my account. So when the quarterly taxes come up, you know, it might not be all of them, but
But it's
it's a big.
you're not getting that huge bill.
And the owner of the S corp is exempt from workers' comp. So when Paychecks ask you if you want workers' comp, you just say, no, I'm going to exempt myself as the owner from workers' comp, don't need workers' comp. And then they'll take workers' comp off the table. And then if you bring on an admin, you're going to get workers' comp. You can't operate without workers' comp.
Any other questions for Ryan and Kris? Okay.
Good question.
Anything around like your own things that you can think of that have come up? Have any of you here looked at their expenses? I don't know if there's anybody in the chat. Let me check real quick. Does anybody in the chat have any questions? Okay.
I have a question for you, Kris.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you're tracking your mileage,
Yeah.
if you're doing it personally versus doing it in your S corp, is there any type of difference in how do we do? Are you-
No, so
I mean,
here's what I do. So
Okay.
here's what I do. So don't track it, Sue. Here's what I do. Buy an app for your phone. Now, you gotta pay for it because you want to be able to produce a report. And they won't let you produce a report on a free app, okay? But just find the cheapest mileage app, $10 a month, $8 a month, whatever. And pay for it so that at the end of the year you can produce the report. Because you just print it, right? You just shove it in your tax file. But let me make you feel better. The odds of you getting audited if you make $100,000 a year or less. That's most of us.
Yeah.
It's 1%. Now think about the whole country and everybody that makes under $100,000. Most of us. That group audited 1%. But it makes about 1,800 of us get audited across the nation who are under 100. Okay, now that's good news, right? But then we use some other news. As long as you don't overstate your income or understate your expenses.
Reverse that.
As long as you don't understate your income,
And
like dyslexia popped out,
Yeah.
or overstate your expenses by more than 25% of your gross. That's the key. You haven't committed fraud. And you don't want to commit fraud. There's $1 million fraud penalty when you hit that 25% mark. Straight up, flat fee, $1 million. The IRS will come collect it. Okay. Now, if they find that you committed fraud, the statute of limitations on audit is removed. So the IRS is allowed to audit you 7 years back. That's why you should keep 7 years worth of records. And that's 7 years from the date you filed. That you filed in the prior year. So we're talking about 8 years worth. Okay. That's how,
Within the statute goes.
if they find fraud, they go back to your 16th birthday.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So basically commit fraud, just not by more.
That's
the lesson I'm getting.
What Ryan meant to say is as long as you're under 25% of your gross, you haven't committed fraud.
So thank you for joining us.
Here's another option though, is the way we're set up is we just have all of our business expenses, all of our auto expenses are business.
You take auto expense actual or mileage, not both. Here's the other thing. You can't switch.
Yeah.
So when you put the car into service, whatever you picked, you're stuck with. Now, if you start mileage actual, because it's always less, and you leave money on the table. But if you start with actual, we'll never let you switch to mileage.
Yeah.
Because now you're getting a bigger benefit.
That's why I try.
So just track the mileage.
And Hurler just tells me at the end of each day where I drove and I start, yes. it's right now. At the end of the day.
Does it all.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And Sue, 99% of what I do is business. So, I mean, come on.
It doesn't
Like, I
do
know
it correctly, like you stop for like 5 minutes, and you're at the red light or whatever, and it, you know, like some of these apps, they've gotten better.
They-
Mileage IQ is.
Mileage
I've tried some of them, they're just
Yeah.
not.
I like mileage.
Any other
It's driving
questions
crazy.
for the panelists? Okay. I just want to make sure that nobody asked here in the chat box.
Doug is waving his hand.
Doug, are you waving your hand? Unmute yourself, honey.
All right, go ahead, Linda.
Hey, just wondering if doing business as is the same or any benefit to it as opposed to LLC?
Okay, I'm not a lawyer, but when you're a sole prop, you're doing business as.
Yeah.
You could be a sole prop, Kris Keller Real Estate with no DBA.
Mhm.
Or you could be a sole prop, Kris Keller Real Estate doing business as Moonstone Real Estate.
Mhm.
That's a sole prop. Okay, so the problem with the sole prop is you get no liability protection at all. And everything reports to your 1040. Right?
Mhm.
So you've created a Schedule C tax shelter for your sole prop. But that's all you've created. When you take it to the level of an LLC, now if you're a single member LLC, that's called a pass through. I know it's too technical.
Yeah.
But a single member LLC is exactly the same as a 1040 sole prop. Liability is the same, report deductions are the same. Until you get to the S corp level, you get no additional benefit in deduction.
Gotcha. Does that answer
help?
for you, Linda? Kind of?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Any other questions? I'm looking this up. Anybody else? Okay, well, I just want to thank everybody for coming. This was so much fun. We're hoping to have more panel discussions like this. I think it's a way more interactive and I hope it's been informative for you. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, but thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming.